Welcome to Grill Wars, the podcast where we take popular iconic films and controversial topics and grill them up, chop them up, and discuss what we love and hate. I'm Mike Freedom.
I'm Duke Meadowpoint.
Duke, what are we grilling up today?
We're going to be looking at Home Alone, a classic from the 90s. It was directed by Chris Columbus, music by John Williams, written and produced by John Hughes. And I had no idea, but this movie has some Guinness World Records, or had.
Dude, I had no idea. Yeah, I had no idea either until we started looking up some of the history here.
I mean, it's a fantastic movie. Every time I watch it, I don't think I've ever been disappointed watching it.
It's true. It was my favorite movie as a kid. It's still one of my favorite Christmas movies. And I think part of the reason, of course, we always talk about it, is music and things like that. And I had no idea. This is the third podcast we've done. John Williams is the composer now for two of them. Because he also did Jurassic Park. Yeah. John Williams, dude, he did the music. My favorite. He did the music here, right? Unbelievable. And Chris Columbus, who did a lot of other films, Mrs. Doubtfire, for example, and then of course did the first two Harry Potter films. So
yeah, all of those great. We should do Doubtfire. That'd be a fun one.
That would be a good one. Maybe we'll save it for another time. Put it on the list.
But today it's Home Alone, and not Home Alone 2, not Home Alone 3, but the OG, the first one.
The original
one from the 1990s. And I got to say, going through watching this again, it has such a 90s vibe. It's so
my
90s,
gosh.
dude.
So right, there's so many things that just remind me of just look, even the opening scenes with how they're dressed and stuff like that. Yeah, it's crazy, but you know what? I love that. I love that about this film. I think that's one of my favorite things about it. Just how 90s it is.
Yeah, and it's a typical old school Christmas film too, right? It's not really focusing on the Christmas like a few other films out there, but it's the holiday times, and it ties so well into kind of the drama, right? Which we'll get into. But the opening scene is so chaotic, where the family, right? This is where we can kind of get into the cast, and
sure,
man, how many? There's like 24 people in this opening scene with the house, and everyone's running around. It's the Christmas craze. They're going on vacation, right? And I think that's where you get introduced to Kevin, right? McAllister, played by, I can't say this name, dude. You got to do it.
Macaulay Culkin. Yeah, Macaulay Culkin.
I'm terrible with names, but but you see him running around, and the parents are obviously nowhere to be found as they're trying to get stuff ready. The kids are all running up and down the stairs, going back and forth, just noise and chaos. I had a good chuckle watching it, because I'm like, man, typical family event, typical sibling interactions with Buzz being kind of the older tough brother.
What an asshole!
Played by
right?
Played by Devin Rattray, I believe.
I think Devin. That's how I would pronounce it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you got your uncles who, they're family, but they're also kind of a dick.
Uncle Frank, man, Jerry Bannon. Again, another asshole. Look what you did, you jerk! Like, who calls an 8-year-old child a jerk in front of everybody?
And the scene where it just zooms in on it too. It's like for effect. Man, this kid is scarred for life.
Like the trauma, the therapy this kid's gonna need. And it's I grew up in a very small family, right? So I wonder with large families. I mean, he's got 2 older brothers and 2 older sisters. So there's 5 kids just in that's in his immediate family, and then all the cousins who are the rest of them. Which, by the way, Fuller, the younger cousin, the bedwetting cousin, that's his actual. That's Macaulay Culkin's little brother in real life.
Oh no shit.
Yeah, and Jeff, the ginger brother, most people will recognize him because that was Big Pete from the Nickelodeon show Pete and Pete. Did you ever watch that show?
I didn't.
Oh, dude, I question your childhood now. Oh man, yeah.
Don't worry.
It was another '90s just Nickelodeon show. Here's a couple of interesting things too. What's Kate McAllister? So Catherine O'Hara, who plays his mother, was supposed to be 30. I think she was 36 in the movie. Now, does that make you feel old, or how does that make you feel?
How does that make me feel?
It makes me feel old.
So in the movie, right? But she's a little bit older than that.
I don't know. No,
I
and
believe.
she was 30. I believe I read, and I could be wrong. Go ahead and feel free to fact check me, but I believe she was 36 in the movie.
Huh, okay.
So
I
now,
mean,
whether or not the character was supposed to be 36, I don't know. I mean, she did a good job of just playing a mom, right? Um, but when I noticed that, I was like, oof. No wonder my back hurts.
yeah, yeah. I mean, another thing, speaking of the film in the 90s, is I am blown away watching this, how much has changed in 30 years.
Oh, I mean, oh, yeah. I mean,
It's so night and day.
let's just call it out. Everything that we realize is just like, oh my gosh, look at this. Like it's just correct. Let's just do that because that again is part of like all the nostalgia of watching this movie.
Hmm.
They'll just go on
Actually,
it.
yeah, and it's not even in the past 30 years. Yeah, that's the time difference, but a lot of the differences with what we saw in the 90s and the early 2000s, I mean, it really didn't change until what, 05, 6, 8, something like that.
That's true. I feel like that was a good turning point. But
Yeah.
yeah, considering this was 1990 when the movie came out, yeah, I mean, we're talking over 30 years ago. When I think of 30 years ago, I think of the 60s. Now it's 30 years. We're talking about the 90s again.
Yeah.
That's a
That's a
little
generational gap.
that's a little weird. That's a little weird.
Hmm.
But going back to the opening scene, right? First off, can we just talk about this house? Look how big that fucking house is. What the hell was Peter McAllister, played by John Hurd? What was he doing? Was he like in the? It was 1990s. The dot-com bubble didn't even happen yet. What was he selling drugs? Like
It had
look
to
at
have been real estate or something,
yeah,
dude.
something.
Or he was selling medical equipment on the streets. Who
Dude,
knows?
dude, the house is just absolutely huge. And
Yeah.
what's interesting about the house is that it's an actual tourist location. So
Which I had no idea either.
yeah, and you know what's also funny is that they name it in the movie. So like later
Oh,
on,
the address.
yeah,
It's the actual there. It's the actual address.
671 Lincoln Avenue in Winnetka, Illinois. And it's funny because later on when we meet the Wet Bandits, he calls out 671, and yeah, and I think even Kevin talked when he talks to the fake Santa guy, he
Yeah.
calls it out there too. So that's a kind of
Yeah.
a little bit of a nugget. Now, if you're ever in Chicago, I guess you can go and just see the house. It's still there, and it was sold for 2012. It was sold for 1.5 million dollars, which I thought it would
Back
be more
then,
than
that
that.
was
No,
back
in
then, though.
2012. Well, yeah, 10 years ago, 2012. It's way more now, but
Yeah.
let's not get on. We can save that the whole real estate bullshit for another conversation.
Fair, fair. Yeah,
but
I mean, I'm in California, so I don't want to talk about real estate, period. But
dude, you and me both, brother. But so it's going back to the opening scene though. So and you know what's funny is that Joe Pesci. This was the first movie I saw him in as a kid. I mean, I was again
same. It's actually the same for me. Yeah.
and he's just sitting there as a cop, and no one's like, oh, why is this cop in our house? Nope, he's just everyone's just running around like you said, kind of crazy.
Yeah, the cop being just hanging out in the house for like a good, what felt like 10 minutes,
Yes.
20 minutes.
Yes.
something wild. It felt like.
Yes.
But that's another just generational difference where cops were community members. And also when someone knocks at your door, if you're not trying to get rid of them, like you'd welcome them into your what do you call that living space right inside the door, the walkway, whatever it is. Like it wasn't super uncommon where somebody, especially if they were just like a friendly community person, you just, hey, come on in, get out of the outside weather. And I love how he's just standing there trying to get the attention. It's like, hey, your parents home? No. Your parents home? No.
No, they don't live here. No, it must be
Yeah.
a fancy orphanage. Yeah.
Right?
'Cause-
I love that.
Yeah, everyone's just running around, absolute insanity, and it's really. I think it's really funny because the first opening 20 minutes, same thing. Like you get an introduction to the cast, right? The mom, the dad, all the siblings, and you kind of start realizing, or it's obviously set up this way, like, oh, everyone kind of hates this kid. Again, the trauma that he's gonna go as the youngest kid in a
Yep.
giant family. Everyone's people are gonna pick on him and all that. Like he's his brother, Buzz, is just a big jerk off. He's telling scary stories about this fucking the shovel
The neighbor.
slayer guy. Yeah, the shovel slayer guy, and it's just it does a good job of getting into that big mess. And then what's interesting is, let's talk about this, right? When they're sitting down to eat the pizza, he goes, oh, they're like, oh, a guy needs $120, and they're like, oh, for pizza, 10 pizzas times $12. It's $12 for a pizza.
Oh, that killed me. Yeah, because nowadays it's double that,
Dude,
right?
what? $12 for a pizza? Oh my gosh! Like, oh man, man.
Big house, huge family. They're going to, where were they going for the vacation? It was
Paris.
Paris? Yeah.
Paris.
Yeah. So big holiday family vacation with not just, a good sized family. It's family and extended family.
Yeah. Well, it was supposed to be Peter McAllister's brother, who Uncle Frank was his brother. So it
Yep.
was Uncle Frank's family too. So it was, I guess, two families of five can easily be, or two families of four, whatever, can easily add up, right? Here's
Hmm.
something else interesting, right? So they get into that scuffle, right? Kevin doesn't like any pizza other than plain cheese, right? So that's his
Yep.
thing. And then Buzz eats his pizza like a jerk off, and he gets into that scuffle with him. And when they start cleaning up, I don't know if you notice, but it's very subtle. When they clean up, they throw Kevin's ticket out.
Yeah, because what happened was he goes to tackle Buzz, who's being a dick, and
Yeah.
then he knocks over a bunch of stuff, and what was it? It was like water,
Milk
or
and yeah, just
soda
a
or
bunch
whatever
of
it was.
yeah, a bunch of stuff, and they had like there was some genius who decided to put the passports and the tickets there next to the
Yep.
food,
Yep.
and everything got all fucked up. But when they started cleaning up, watch when they throw it out, you see they throw Kevin's ticket out. It's very
Y-
very
Yeah,
subtle.
I always forget that the ticket wasn't really thought about when they were checking in at the airport. And I always thought it was strange that, like, why are they zooming into the trash bin?
Yes.
So, I now that you're mentioning, I don't think I ever really like looked that carefully, but I always figured it was implied. So
Ah,
little subtle things,
yeah,
these
yeah,
little
yeah, yeah.
coincidences, which throughout the movie there's these little happy coincidences, which we find, I think, more in older films, whereas nowadays things have to be orchestrated in films.
Yeah.
Whereas in the old ones it was just, it's a silly goofy thing. It just, don't question it, don't worry about it.
Right. It just right.
And it was
just
okay back
happens.
then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just happens. So then obviously he it's his fault. So they banish him to the
Yep.
to the upstairs,
To the attic.
to
Yeah.
the attic, right? And they were gonna put him with the pisser kid, but I guess they didn't. And
Oh, and speaking of happy little coincidences, as the night starts to kind of end, what was it? Was it lightning or the power
just wind. It was just it was a storm, and the
took
tree
the power out?
the
Yeah.
tree yeah, like the tree breaks or something like that, and it completely fucks up the power. And oh my god, like they wake up, and I don't know if you've ever has that ever happened to you? Have you ever woken up late for a flight?
Oh yeah.
Oh, you have?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I have. I have. There's
Yeah,
been
I forgot who I was
plenty.
talking
There's
to.
actually been plenty of times where I, either was pushing the limit because I'm like, yeah, the airport's super close to me. It's like a 10-minute drive, and if I run into just the slightest bit of traffic, or if I oversleep by just like 10 minutes because I only give myself like a 20-minute window to get there.
Oh my god,
There's
dude.
been plenty of times where I'm panicking, being like, I'm gonna miss this flight. I'm gonna miss this
Dude,
flight.
what the fuck?
But
Okay,
listen.
well.
So when I was flying a lot, and you know this a bit more than our audience does,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I used to live literally 10 minutes away from the airport. So
That's fair.
I would give myself only 20, 30 minutes to get there, assuming that, check-in takes 10 minutes, getting to the terminal takes 10 minutes, and they close the gate like 10 minutes in. So yeah, I was like, yeah, it should be fine. But all it takes is just one little event from Murphy to be like, hey, buddy, fuck you.
Well, I got to tell you this, and maybe someone in our audience can benefit. So I was going for a flight, and I'm very paranoid about missing flights. And my alarm, for some reason, didn't go off. It went off silently. Now I know you're not an iPhone user, but iPhone users, think about if you've ever had an alarm set and the alarm went off, but the sound didn't go off.
Yeah.
That's a thing. And I know it's a thing because I was like, what the fuck? So first off, I get up, and of course, I think my flight was at like 6:45 or something. It was 6 o'clock. I was like, fuck. Right. So
Ooh.
luckily, I have a great person I work with who can help me with the flights and all that type of stuff. But I was like, holy shit, I definitely missed this fucking flight, and it was the worst feeling. But then I was like, how the fuck did this happen? And it actually is a thing. And there's a setting on your iPhone that you can change so that the phone, I think, thinks that you're looking at it so it doesn't make the noise. And I don't know why. I think because I had my sleep cycle app on or some shit, but whatever the point is, the alarm didn't go off. And I woke up and I woke up like they woke up.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck.
Like, what time is it?
Yeah,
it feels lighter out than it's supposed to be.
Oh, dude, it was so bad. So they wake up and then it's just scramble. And
Yep.
I think when they're leaving the house, he's like, oh, we're never going to make this flight. It leaves in 45 minutes. And I sat there and I was like, fuck that. You would never make that today. Not with all the, this is all pre 9/11, right? So now with all the TSA bullshit.
Yep.
Yeah. Even with TSA pre, there's still bullshit you have to go through because, if you're like me and they find like, I don't know, like something, in my bag, what's this? And, and then getting patted down, I'm getting cavity searched, whatever. I'm TSA pre. I'm still getting a hard time every now and then. It's very,
You're our lucky winner.
right. Random search.
Yep. For those that don't fly that often, it happens. You'd be surprised.
Yes, it's really irritating. And once you go TSA pre, first for a while I was like, TSA pre, fuck that, I'm not paying for this. And then of course, in our line of work, we flew all the time. And I was like, okay. And then once I did it, I was like, all right, shut up, take my money. Here,
Hard to go back.
fine.
Yeah, I mean, we live in a pay
fine.
for convenience society.
Oh my God, yeah, it's such ridiculous. Anyway, so they rush out and
they're all running in the terminal too, which no one wants to do.
Well, what's also funny too is even before they get to the terminal, right? That kid walks up, and
oh yeah, the neighbor,
the neighbor kid, and I think and he's just like. He starts nagging the
driver.
He's like, I don't know, kid, hit the road. Like, yeah.
And he's leaned over in the passenger seat. It's like, dude, get the fuck out of here.
Out of here. Yeah. So they missed, and then they miscount because of that. Right? Everything happened so conveniently, right?
Those happy coincidences.
All the stars align, right? So,
yep.
Here's another little call out too from the 90s. Did you notice how Big Pete, the brother, when in the car he's playing a Tiger handheld? Did you ever have those?
No,
you never had.
didn't.
Dude, I'm really questioning your childhood. You never played with Tiger handhelds?
Tiger handhelds. What are those?
They were these little handheld things that were, dude, they were so basic, but they were so much fun, and they ran on like maybe 2 to 4 AA batteries, and it was like an LCD screen. But the way the LCD screen was set up is that you could play like baseball or I specifically remember I had a baseball one.
No, so I had the knockoff like Japanese toys because I have a mixed family. So I had like this old school, like the original Tetris handheld or
oh wow, that sounds cool.
all sorts of
wasn't that Russian?
Other gadgets. I don't remember. Well, either way, there was it was a Tetris only handheld that looked like a taller version of a Game Boy.
Was it? I'm gonna have to look that up because I'm not familiar with that. But yeah, he has a Tiger handle, and that's another little 90s reference there. But yeah, then they're sprinting through the airport. And again, if have you ever sprinted through the airport? It's the worst feeling in the world because now you're getting all worked out. You basically, and I'm, to our audience, I exercise a lot, and I still hit because then I end up sweaty, and you're like, oh.
You're cramped in like sardines, and you're just starting to heat up, and you can't really move and cool off, and you're trying to blast the air. But either way,
yeah. And then
speaking of old devices, though, I also enjoyed somebody owned a cassette player in the movie at the beginning. It might have been Buzz. He was like looking at his little cassette tape player.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
Oh,
so
dude,
you might have
cassettes,
missed that.
man. No, man, I remember cassettes. I had cassettes out the ass. Michael Jackson cassettes. That was what I used to rock. I didn't notice that. I have to go back and look at that. But yeah, another 90s call out. So then they end. So that's like the first 20 minutes of the movie, and then they get on the plane, and he finally wakes up, and he's like, where the fuck is everybody?
Well, leading into that, right? The evening before when he was getting sent to the attic, this is kind of the I wish upon a star moment where it's like, I hate this family, I hate you, I never want to see any of you again. And the mom actually is the one character that kind of annoys me in the movie. It's because she's like, she's giving the kid flack, right? And as soon as the kid lashes out and says, I hope I never see you again. She's like, I hope you don't really mean that. It's like, bitch, you were egging him on. Come on. So, but yeah, he wishes that the family disappears. He'd be so much happier. And he wakes up the next morning, like, it's oddly quiet. I'm going to go get some breakfast. Wait a minute. Where is everybody?
Talk about that when he's in the kitchen, right? He sees that old school
Yep.
TV and stuff like that. Yeah. And then he's like, holy shit.
I did it.
I made my family disappear, and he's just, just starts going crazy, right? Start throwing a party, and he starts
Basically.
going through with all his shit and all this stuff. I guess he couldn't do, right?
Yep. Messing with all of his older brother's stuff,
Right.
eating ice cream for lunch or dinner or whatever
Yeah.
it was.
Right. Looking at it, he goes through. He finds a Playboy magazine. And I remember as a kid, I was like, damn, I want to see one of those. Because I knew what it was. I never had. I'd never seen it. I was like, oh. Right?
I love how dismissive. In my memory, I thought he actually looked through it and like had wide eyes, but no, in the film, he actually just scrolls through it and tosses it aside.
No.
Yeah.
That definitely wouldn't have been me. I would have been like, whoa, titties. I would have fucking, I would have fucking been like, yeah.
And then they have like a BB gun or something too.
He finds a BB gun. He finds his brother's girlfriend, right?
Right. Yeah,
his girlfriend Wolf, right?
Yeah, not the good wolf either.
Yeah, no, right, exactly. Oh my god! And then he finds the gun and starts lining that stuff. Those little miniatures, right? It's another '90s. That's definitely a '90s thing. BB gun too, right? Everyone like BB guns were a thing back then. Still, right? You would take that out and shoot. I never had one, but any of my friends who did, I was like, oh man, let's go shoot it. That was definitely not allowed in my in my house.
Yeah, I think that's something you'd see in Chicago for sure.
And then he starts watching. What did it talk about? Not even cassette players. He throws in a VHS of Angels with Filthy Souls, which is not a real movie, right? That's definitely.
I was gonna ask. Yeah, it's like,
dude, no.
Considering the location, what turned out to be a real deal, actually called out. I was like, I never actually considered to look. Was that a real film? It kind of gives me the whole what is it Scarface kind of vibe, but
totally in that because it's supposed to be like a gangster film or whatever, and just I love the who is it, Johnny. He just lights the guy up, right? And it's so funny because that returns later on in the movie
multiple times.
It's used really, really, really well. And at that point they switch over, and that's when again his mother's like, oh, we forgot something, and they finally realize, oh shit, we left our fucking kid at home. Right?
Yeah, I'm the worst mother.
Yeah, what kind of mother?
She's having a mental breakdown.
Yeah, oh my god.
Which is such a family situation where it's like, in the moment you take it all for granted. You're giving each other shit, whether it be for good reasons or bad. But as a parent, right, you this is the one kind of redemption thing I do, appreciate about her character, is that she's a mom. And she feels absolutely horrible that she left one of her kids home, and didn't even cross her mind to like properly see her kid and realize that, wait a minute, I'm missing one of my kids. Yeah. And it just devastates her. And kind of, throughout the movie, throughout the movie, there's a bit of this obviously son and mother connection thing going on, but it could have been missing from the movie, and I would have been fine.
Yeah.
But a lot of the scenes where it's not focused on Kevin and the Wet Bandits, which we'll get into in a little bit, is about the mom and her journey to get home and her struggles to rush home during holiday season. On top of it,
and in a foreign country,
and in a foreign country, right? International. To get back to her son, because she has no idea what's going on because the phones are down and all the entire neighborhood is out of town apparently. Right.
And they did a again very convenient job of that too, right?
Yeah.
Immediately it's like, oh, the phones are down. So, and they actually, before they leave, the phone guy's like, oh, the phone's gonna take a couple of days. She's like, okay, whatever, right? So it's like, okay, can't call the house. And then when they get into Paris, then they another thing, right? Payphones, which was who sees a payphone anymore, right? Payphones were definitely a thing, and they're trying to make all these calls, and no one is just reachable. How can no one's reachable at all? Everyone's on vacation, everyone's shopping or whatever.
Holidays, yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, no one's reachable.
But this is also pre-cell phone days. Yeah,
Oh
that's
yeah,
right.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's not like you just
It's all landline.
It's all landline, man. So that was your only option.
Mm-hmm.
And then we finally get an introduction to the about 30 minutes in. We finally get an introduction to the Wet Bandits, right? So Daniel Stern playing Marv, Joe Pesci, like we mentioned, playing Harry, and just what a good duo the two of them. Like between Joe Pesci, who's just kind of like serious whatever, but Marv is just comic relief.
You know what it
And
reminds me of is Pinky and the Brain. You ever watch that?
yeah, of course. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because Marv is Pinky, kind of the dumbass comedic relief, whereas Harry is the brains of the operation. He's the one with the master plan. He's the one with the schemes, and Marv is kind of the lackey, but they're partners. So yeah, when I was watching, I'm like, this is such a Pinky and the Brain stereotype or archetype of characters here. It's fantastic.
I like that. It's another good '90s reference. By the way, so after that, right, when they're calling, trying to get, this is something I picked up. This is something I picked up in the last 5 years. Did you notice that the cop, when she calls the cops and she's trying to get the police over, the sergeant that picks up the phone, his name is Sergeant Balzac.
You know what? I didn't realize that.
He goes, "Oh, family crisis, Sergeant Balzac speaking."
Yeah.
There's a little nameplate. You could like see it there. And I never caught that, and I just caught it recently, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is so stupid," but it's so
I
funny.
never caught it. I love wordplay too. It went right over my head.
Yeah, dude.
Wow.
So funny. So funny. So then he spends, I guess it was supposed to be like 3 days, right? He's alone, whatever. He runs into Marley a couple times. Like he runs into Marley. He goes out, and what happens first? He goes out. He needs to go like get a toothbrush or some shit.
Well, so there was a couple things leading to that. Is in the opening scene where Harry is playing the police officer, right? There's the scene where he smiles at Kevin, and the gold tooth does a very particular shine, and it becomes very, very memorable. And when Kevin is out, doing chores because he's home alone, he needs supplies. He's making plans for his day. He's being kind of like a pseudo adult almost, which is kind of funny. But yeah, he goes out and he's about to get run over, right?
Oh,
because the two were bantering in their truck about the houses they were going to hit and the plans they were going to do. And Kevin just kind of idly walks in front like, I'm a thief or whatever he says.
That made me laugh. That was a funny scene. He's like, oh,
I'm a criminal now.
Yeah.
But he almost gets run over, and I love how he turns and screams, and typical comedic relief. The car stops just in front of his nose, just perfectly.
So funny.
The dude, he yells out. It's like, "Hey kid, you gotta watch where you're going." It's like it's his fault.
Right. Exactly.
But he notices the gold tooth, and he's like, "Oh, it's him." And that's one of the ways that they reveal, aside from, stealing shit from the other homes nearby as they're getting ready for the big one, which is the McAllister house.
Right. And they try a couple times, right? The first night he scares them away. The second night the second attempt, they go. This was after the scene you talked about, and he sets up the whole like, oh, it looks like there's a party or whatever, right? He's got Michael Jordan on the train around, and he's doing stuff, and they're like, what the hell, right? So he gets them away, and then I think they finally realize that he's home alone.
Yeah, because while they're robbing one of the other homes, they being obviously our favorite Wet Bandits here, they conveniently, another happy coincidence, the family's giving the neighbors a call, being like, hey, we're in Paris, give us a call if you can. We're trying to get in touch with somebody. I don't think they specifically say that the kid's home alone, but the thieves deduce that, oh wait, they are out of town.
Right.
That means the kid that we see that's from this house, he must be home alone.
Right. And they check. Well, he sends Marv over, and then they do. He does the thing again with the the movie, the Angel of Filthy Souls, and like he scares Marv away. Which that was one of my I like that scene. Anytime he scared someone, he scared the pizza guy, he scared Marv with that scene. I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, that was always very memorable for me too.
But then finally, yeah, they realize that he's home alone, and they're like, all right, like let's fucking go, right? Whatever, and we can get this kid, type of a thing. Um, and before that happens, he ends up like I don't know. He does other stuff. He runs. He gets groceries. Did you notice that he spends only $20 on groceries? That's
Yeah,
just something else you gotta call out.
I mean, he didn't buy a whole lot. He bought some toys. He bought some food. He didn't really buy a whole lot. I think there was like
Dude,
5 items or less, but $20 for groceries is pretty nice.
Dude, he bought detergent, milk, orange juice. No, there's no way. I mean, dude, a fucking dozen eggs cost me like $3.50. I'm in California, all right? So
yeah, our prices are a bit up there.
Fucking ridiculous. It's unbelievable. There's no way I'm getting groceries or whatever for $20 anymore. I see that and I'm like, oh my god. Just you know what it is. I'm just jealous. Just jealous of how little he's spending. So then finally going back to the mother too, like she starts making her way back. She runs into what's his name, Gus Polinski, played by John Candy. And it's interesting to see John Candy in this movie because he was with Macaulay Culkin in Uncle Buck, which came out before this, and I believe that's kind of what gave Macaulay Culkin kind of his first start. It wasn't this movie; it was Uncle Buck. So it was interesting to see John Candy doing or here in this, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we'll give you a ride." So she starts making her way home, at least, which is good. From whatever airport she was in, she's like all over the place.
Yeah, I forget the town. She's like,
so she was in Scranton, and I specifically remember that because I was like, as a kid, I was like, where the fuck is Scranton? Scranton's in Pennsylvania, and
so she made it to the East Coast because she was like, I was in Paris, I was in New York, and then it's like, where the fuck am I now?
Yeah. So she makes it there, and then she looks up with John Candy, like, oh, I'll give you a ride home. Okay, cool. So she's on the way home. Meanwhile, right, the Wet Bandits they're getting ready, and Kevin, I get this by the middle of the movie, he's kind of feeling, he's like, oh man, I want my family back.
Yep.
And then
a little homesick, or not homesick, family sick.
Family sick. He ends up and he even goes again. He goes to the fake Santa and like asks for them back, whatever. And then he goes to the church and he meets up with Old Man Marley again, and realizes, oh, this guy's not a murderer. And it's funny because even Marley's like, there's a lot of rumors about me, but they're not true. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't sound sus. That sounds right. I mean, that's just what a murderer would say.
Right.
Like,
well, he's portrayed as kind of the old kook of the neighborhood, right? Not really kook, but the well, I guess the one that rumor mill follows.
Well, but don't worry, none of that's true.
Yeah.
Okay.
Come over sometime. I have candy.
Yeah, I have candy. You're right. I got some candy. Yeah. And it's just funny how he gets life advice from this kid, but obviously that will pay off later on, and then he goes home. And this is where, like, probably the best part of the movie starts, is where, the showdown, right? He pulls out this battle map, and it's got everything laid out there we're going to see later. And it's very subtle because you don't really see it for very long, but it's got everything there. And
wait. He had a battle map?
He had a battle. He called it Battle Plan. And he has everything on the battle plan. He's got everything that you're going to see later is laid out.
Oh, you're right. You know what? I just pulled up the film and scrolled through it. I found it. He has everything there.
Yeah, and then that's incredible. Sets everything up, and it's just great because he's got perimeter defenses, he's got internal defenses.
Yeah,
he's got everything.
Now, before this is probably arguably the most memorable part of the entire film, right? This is kind of what made the film so great, I think, and it really reminds me of, I don't know if it's really on par, but it reminds me of like Mousetrap, Rube Goldberg, right?
Totally.
Where it just one thing leads to another, and there's something so just like it's the oddly satisfying kind of emotion that gets captured when it's like one thing leads to the next, and it's just like, I love it when a plan comes together, Well,
that, and it's like it's almost like classic slapstick comedy. Like, it's just funny to see two grown men get beat the fuck up. Like, who doesn't like
by a
that?
kid? Yeah.
Who doesn't like that? Like, like they try to. I'm laughing even thinking about it. Like they go to the back door, right? He's got a BB gun and he shoots Harry right in the dick.
That's true.
Right in the dick. And of course, like what's so funny about this is Joe Pesci doing his Joe Pesci. He's cursing, but like it's a PG movie, so he's just like
it's like kind of self bleeping himself.
Yeah.
And then Marv, being the dumbass, sticks his head in the dog hole. Gets shot right between the eyes. Gets head eyes.
Oh my god! And then they split up. Right, brilliant plan. And and this is it's interesting. It's interesting because you know if you grew up in a warm climate, this is going now to where they split because Harry goes to the front steps and Marv goes to the basement.
Yep.
Let me ask you this, Duke. Have you ever busted your ass on ice?
I have in like an ice rink, but yeah, the feeling of slipping and falling on your back, it doesn't matter. Like if you don't catch yourself and you fall from standing to body, it does not feel good.
Dude, it's just if you live in a warm climate, you never experience that. But anyone who lived in the Northeast, the Midwest, the Pacific Northwest, or whatever, but when it gets cold, shit freezes quick. And if you have ice on your steps or ice on your walkway or ice in your driveway, you will bust your ass. And it like you could really fuck yourself up. And it's just hysterical to me to watch them fall just a couple times, either fall down the stairs, fall multiple times, fall backwards, like because that shit would really happen. And that's why you would always like any cold climate you'd have salt. You'd have to salt your
driveways.
your driveways, your steps, and all of that.
Which that is something that I think as a kid you probably don't understand because they bring the salt up at the beginning when Buzz is kind of telling the story about the neighbor and how he murders people and their bodies become the salt, which is so stupid.
Salt turns the bodies into mummies.
Yeah, exactly. But he's he's salting the driveway, and I think what adults would have caught is like he's not just salting his driveway, but he's salting the sidewalk too.
Right. For everybody. Yeah. For
exactly.
Everyone.
So it's super subtly implied that it's like, hey, this isn't really a bad guy. He's doing something nice for the neighborhood.
Right.
He just has a bit of a rough demeanor to him.
Right. And then like, and again, he sees him in the store and he's got like his hands bleeding or whatever. Like,
right.
He's like, oh, like, yeah. But he's not a murderer. He's it's all rumors. So then they start trying to get into the house, and who gets in first? I think Marv gets in first after he busts his ass, and then
so Marv is trying to break into the basement, and in the basement is also where the furnace is, which people in warm climates probably don't know about.
Good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
Right?
Yeah.
But the furnace being in the basement, and it makes like noise, right? So I can understand a kid being like terrified of the basement because it's dark, claustrophobic, and then the furnace making like the weird rumble and growling sounds. He kind of sees it like a monster, but it's cute that Kevin, as he's kind of independent now with his family missing, eventually gets over. It's like, shut up.
Yeah.
So
and leverages the basement to his advantage. And again, he just gets beamed in the head with an iron. Because what is it? There's a string on the laundry chute, which not a lot of homes have unless you live in a certain neighborhood. That's correct.
Like
I never had a laundry chute. Like that wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
So I was like, what the hell is that? But yeah, he tries to pull the light and then gets beamed in the head.
Which I got to take a moment to say they did such a fantastic job with the what is it called? It's not special effects. It's the cosmetics where. Like when he gets hit in the head with the iron and he stands back up, like his head is indented with ironing holes. Well, but not just like the indent from the iron itself and the redness from it, but the
steam
God, what do you call it? Like the blisters, or whatever.
Yeah.
Where the holes would have been.
Yeah.
And a little bit later, when Harry tries to break into the side door, I believe that's where the little torch was set up, where if you open the door the torch would get triggered and it basically burns his scalp. Like his scalp looked burned as hell.
Yes
And they both look so natural. I'm like, man, some cinema today, you can tell it's done through post-editing or whatever. But man, for a 90s film, I was blown away looking back at it. Just like, wow, it looks, I could believe that was bruising from an iron. I could believe that he just burned his fucking scalp off.
Well, he just didn't you didn't have a choice back then, right? You had to just make it work.
Yeah.
And not only that too, before he even gets there, he burns his hand on Harry burns his hand on the door where he
The
has,
door
like,
handle.
and
What was that? I still to this day don't quite understand what that tool was that he puts on the handle.
You know what? That's a good point. I don't know.
Yeah, if you guys know what that is, leave it in the comments, because it was like a round. It was a heating loop of some sort. I'm not even sure what would you use that for. It almost looked like an iron, like a clothing related item, but considering how hot it got, I to this day don't know what that was.
It's true, and I never even questioned. It's like, oh, he's just making a booby trap. Okay, cool. Yeah. And then he completely burns his hand, and then it's like, okay, he just goes around to the back. He burns his head, which I thought was hysterical. Mm-hmm. And
because that comedic relief, he's standing there staring into the camera with his head poking through the door, just
so stupid. Oh, I'll tell you what was that one was really funny. I'll tell you what was brutal too was Marv's walking up the stairs.
Oh, right? Yeah, losing his shoes on the tarred staircase.
His socks, and then he steps on the nail.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh fuck.
Now, a little bit of, after the fact, we're adults, we're investigating, reviewing the film. It's like, if there was tar on the stairs, I'd be looking down. I don't know how he stepped on the one nail, but, comedic convenience. But yeah, that's so funny. And after he steps on it, he lunges backwards and just slams back into the ground.
Yes.
I don't know what's so funny about dudes falling over, but we love it.
It's great. Yeah, I could watch again. This is what makes it. It doesn't lose its comedic effect. Who doesn't want to see these guys get beat the fuck up? It's hysterical.
Slipping on ice, getting smacked in the face by dumbass things.
Yeah, well, it's almost like a Saw movie. Why would you not, you know what I mean? Like, I can't look away. These guys are getting tortured.
Oh man, what's next?
So and then they make it in. And Harry's there. He gets feather trapped. Marv goes through the window, and this was hard. This was like, oh, like he gets
tarred and
feathers. He steps. No. That was Harry. Harry gets the feather trap, and then he steps on these ornaments because he's got bare feet.
Oh right,
he steps on these ornaments, and it's like, oh god, right, which would be just terrible.
Yeah, because back then, it's not safety material. It's literal glass. Shards.
Yeah. In fact, I remember that as a kid. We had to be really careful with the ornaments because if you dropped one, it would be like, oh fuck. You know what I mean?
It's like dropping a glass cup.
Yeah. Yep. So imagine again stepping on that. He makes it. They make it through. So okay, they finally link back up, and then they go. Here's another 90s. The Micro Machines. Dude. That was definitely a 90s thing.
Yeah, I miss Micro Machines, which is sad because I grew up in a house where it's like I wanted Micro Machines so bad. I grew up with Hot Wheels, but
I had Hot Wheels too.
My parents would never get me Micro Machines. But what I loved about Micro Machines is that they came out with these like stages for the Micro Machines that you could play with. So they'd have like little I don't know what you would call them, but like miniature like arenas or structures for the machines, whereas Hot Wheels, it was always about the track, right?
Yes, which I never had, so I would just.
But the fact that
use it on the kitchen floor.
Yeah, but Kevin had dozens. He had as many Micro Machines as I had Legos back in the day, but all over the floor. Yep. And both of them, Marv and Harry, finally converge at the bottom of the staircase, and both of them just don't look, slip on the Micro Machines, fall back again. It was good.
Yeah, classic. Then they get up, and then here comes the classic, just the paint cans.
All right,
getting beamed. Could you imagine what that would like if it was a full paint can?
I mean, considering the speed it was falling at, it had to be half full.
Right?
Oops.
Oh my god!
It's a brick to the face, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And it's on the stairs, so they get thrown off again.
They go flying.
And I love how Harry sees the first one, And he's so busy looking back at Marv that he doesn't recognize the second one coming and gets plowed by it too.
Yeah.
Man. Oh, so great.
Now, the one that really makes me laugh, because then they make it up the stairs, they trip, they almost get him, and he finds the tarantula, and he just puts it on Marv's face, and like Marv just lets out this blood curdling scream. Yeah.
And it's kind of implied that Marv is kind of like a big teddy bear in a sense, where he's like afraid of the dark.
And,
like you kind of get this implied feeling that Marv talks the talk, but is really soft on the inside in a way.
Yeah,
he's a big overgrown child. Yeah, in a way. Yeah. But yeah, he's fucking just freaks out by the spider.
That was a real tarantula. I found out it was a real one. They did the take once, and he didn't scream. They had to dub it in. They didn't want to fuck with the spider, but it was a real tarantula that they put on his face. So they did that in one take. Yeah.
But actually, also leading up to that scene, I believe Kevin feigned one direction, called the police, and then went the other way for his final escape, quote unquote. Right. And that's where he gets caught, and that's where he conveniently finds the tarantula. And then the tarantula, I think after Marv gets up, lands on Harry, right? And that's where he takes the crowbar. He's like, don't move. And he's just like, Marv, what are you doing?
And just rams him in his ribs. Like, oh my God.
Ooh, with a crowbar, man. Yes. Crowbars are no joke. God. They're solid iron or whatever it's made out of. And that's such old school comedic relief right there too. Like hitting your buddy with a very painful object. For their benefit,
right? That's what I mean. Like it's very classy, but it doesn't get old. Like it's still And so when he finally makes it across, he gets to the tree house. They try to get on the wire. He cuts it. They go flying. He comes down. Then this is where again he calls the cops. I think his plan was to lead him into the other house, and they go through, but they outsmart him, and they find him in the Murphy's house, which is again now flooded because Marv, plugged up the sink.
Yes, to give the name the Wet Bandits.
Yeah. Right.
So everyone's got to leave their call.
Yeah. And right before they're gonna do some bad shit to him, of course, right? Marley comes back, and it turns out the rumors. I guess. I mean, look, he takes a shovel and he hits them both over the head with a shovel. And that guy is not like a spring chicken either. Like he really hits them over the head with that shovel pretty fucking hard.
Well, it kind of knocks the two out, right?
Yeah, and I'm kind of in my head going, see, these rumors, were they? Okay.
So you're thinking there's some implications.
Kind of sounds like I don't know. He hit him pretty well there. Pretty much almost murdered them.
I wonder what this argument with his son was where the son would never talk to me.
Right. Dad, you gotta stop murdering people.
Yeah, right. What are you gonna do about all these mummies in the basement?
I don't want to see you anymore. Right. Yeah. And then that kind of starts wrapping up the movie, right? Because he gets finally the mother gets home. Yep. And
police catch them. I love how it comes full circle with the whole Wet Bandit stuff. It's like, man, good thing you guys always left the water running. Now we know every home you've been to.
Yeah, and then it's like you motherfucker.
Yeah, because they're just giving him the dirty eye.
Yeah. Yep. And he waves at him, sends him off, and it's like, okay, right. And then conveniently, right, the mother gets home, and of course everyone else gets home too.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a bit of a moral there, right? It's like rushing sometimes doesn't get you home any faster than just going through with schedules.
Yeah,
with what was planned, just letting things be.
Yeah,
right.
That's a good point.
But we get it. The mom had to get home to her kid, but it full circles with the happy ending. Mom and son have their moment. The whole family's there. Buzz actually gives him a bit of a handshake of approval for not burning the house down.
Right.
Cute. And then, he looks out the window and finds Marley talking with his dad or with his son and I guess the wife and the grandkid.
The granddaughter. Yeah.
Yeah. Which he finally gets to spend some time with for the holidays just in time.
Yeah. And happy ending until Buzz finds his room.
Yeah, you're right. Because
shambles.
Exactly. I never understood why they made a second and a third movie. I guess the movie was successful enough where you get it, but it's
Yeah,
like,
well, I
yeah,
I, I pretend there wasn't anything past the second one. I happen to enjoy the second one. We'll save it for another
hmm.
review, maybe next year, right? Whatever. Um, but they made like six or
Did they
something.
really? Oh,
It's
damn.
some insane absurd amount. Like,
I mean, the premise is fun, but it's just one of those
yeah,
timeless things where you just leave it alone.
yeah. Well, again, when there's money to be made, right? So
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, it's like the Sandlot. You ever see the Sandlot?
Once upon a time, I have
Ah,
not.
dude.
Yeah.
All right. That's another one of my favorite '90s movies. They made a second one, and I'm just like, why?
Sandlot was that the baseball one
That
or
was the
was that the one
baseball
with the
one.
group of kids?
That was
Yeah,
the baseball one. But we'll save it for
another time.
another episode.
There's so many good old classics where it just you go back, and I don't know, maybe that's our nostalgia or our age showing, but
It is
I
definitely.
I feel like Home Alone still, there's visual quality. It's not as crisp and clean, but I think you can show this to a kid and they'd fucking love it.
Totally. They wouldn't get some things like payphones and all that type of stuff, but
Which, speaking of showing it to kids and not getting things like payphones, was there anything when you first saw this movie that you didn't understand? Because going back, it wasn't until I was older and it's on the cover of the film where Kevin has his hands and he's screaming, right? I
mhm.
mean, that scream comes from when he's slapping his face after bathing with what I know now to be aftershave.
Yes, right. Yes, I didn't.
Right?
I had no idea as a kid. No, I didn't know. And
Yeah,
that scream was so iconic. Like if you knew Home Alone, you knew the scream, right?
exactly. But yeah, as a kid growing up, I was like, why is he screaming, putting the shit on? Like, does it burn? Like,
Yeah,
it
I had
kind of
no idea.
does, like, if you know what aftershave does. But he also doesn't shave. So I'm like, would it burn
I
if
don't
you
think it.
don't shave?
I don't think it would burn if
Yeah.
you didn't shave. That's the like. So that's a
So,
good point. It's a good
yeah.
point.
But outside of that, gosh, the 90s. I guess the only difference nowadays, if someone were to go back and look at it, is just there's so many unrecognizable toys and technologies.
Yeah.
First
Yeah.
Class actually had some decent space, it looked
Right.
like.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Which now you have three classes. You have business first, and then economy, depending on where you're going. Like if you're going international flight, you'll have premium, you have business, premium economy, and then regular economy. So that's different.
Yeah, the whole flight economy is a totally other conversation I could rant about.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, we'll save it for another episode. We have plenty of
Yeah.
content, guys. So if you have any other interesting '90s movies, or please let us know, and we'll be happy to take a look and check it out. But one more thing I got to ask you, Duke, about this. So
Yeah.
what do you think the worst trap was, and what do you think what was your favorite trap?
I mean, the worst trap, I got to give it to the nail. I thought the nail was kind of dumb. Just like one long ass nail.
Well, okay, so I meant worst, meaning like, oh man, that sucks. Like
Oh,
not
okay.
like
Worst for
not the
worst for
lamest
the
one.
ones that were dealing with it.
Right, correct, correct.
Oh man, I gotta say the blowtorch, dude. That's
That's
brutal.
brutal. Yes, I completely agree with you. And it was also my favorite because I think it was
Yeah.
just so funny to see this grown man get his head lit on fire with a blowtorch and scream into the camera. Like, yeah. So
I think my favorite is actually the door handle with that object I don't understand. the heated up handle. Because as a kid, right? Think about it. If you were home alone as a kid, because he's 8, right? I think
He's
the mom
8,
says multiple
yes.
times that my
He's
8-year-old son is
He's
home
8.
alone. Like man, even the scene where he sets up the fake party with the cutouts on the train and using the strings to make it pretend that things are moving. I don't know if I would have been able to pull
Oh,
that shit off.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
That's some adult MacGyver crap right there. But yeah, the trap wise, I think that was my favorite just because I remember as a kid thinking like that is so smart. That's so genius. Yeah, you put it on the handle, it heats up the handle, he goes to grab it, and it is red hot. It's piping hot.
Yeah. And little nugget, right? In the next movie, that M is still there. But again, we'll save it for another time.
That what?
The M on his hand because he grabs the handle.
Oh,
It has
is
an
it
M on
really?
it, and it's
Oh,
on.
what
Yeah, it's still
a little
he,
Easter egg.
He after that he puts his hand in the snow and he looks at his hand. It's got the M on it from the handle.
Yeah.
And in the next movie, it's still there.
That's funny. I
Yeah.
never realized that.
Yeah.
I think I saw the second and third one.
I'm a big I'm a big Home Alone fan. So
It's good. I
interesting.
approve.
How about this too, Harry? I'm looking at this. I'm looking at the screen. And I have the movie up. It looks like Harry has a wedding ring on.
Uh, I
Dude,
don't.
I'm looking at it. He's got a wedding ring on.
Yeah, but I'm
Very weird.
wondering. I'm wondering if he put that on when he stole it from maybe one of the other houses.
Oh, good point. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it could have been that.
But that would be funny if he left it on, or
Right?
if it's like
He's actually married. He goes home to
he's
his wife
actually
and
married.
kids after he.
Yep. Yeah, that'd be so funny.
Okay, so
He's
any other nuggets or things from this movie? I had a great time watching this over. I watch it every Christmas. Classic Christmas movie. Any
yeah,
final thoughts
perfect for the
here?
holidays.
Yeah.
No, it's a good one. It's again, we've started this channel with a lot of kind of timeless classics that, at least for us personally, you guys let us know what you think and any recommendations you have, obviously. But films that we can go back to, watch almost any time of the year, and just have a good time watching. Right? It's memorable. It's iconic. The soundtrack just doesn't take away from the film. If anything, it adds to it. And just the premise, it's just simple, good fun. It's awe-inspiring, whatever it may be, whatever the genre may be. So, Home Alone, I'm happy to do this for the holidays. And speaking of which, if you guys are watching this in December, happy holidays.
Yeah, happy
Hope you enjoy
holidays.
Christmas.
Yep, have a good any breaks, time off, and Duke and I will be back very soon to grill up another episode of either a movie or something else. Maybe we'll do a topic, who knows. But
Yeah,
if you
leave a comment. Let us know what you guys would like to see, because we're starting with films, but we're down to get off the beaten path a little bit and get into some topics that might be a bit interesting.
yeah,
We'll see what happens.
like aliens and stuff.
Aliens, ooh, that's a topic right there. I can go on for an hour on that
Yeah.
alone.
Yeah. So if you've listened this far, thank you so much. Please like, subscribe, comment, do all that fun stuff, and we'll be back soon on the next episode of Grill Wars.
All right, I'm Duke Meadowpoint.
I'm Mike Freedom.
Take it easy, everybody.
Peace, peace.
Peace.